I still remember the exact moment my life turned into a viral nightmare, all because of a cup of coffee. There I was, trying to enjoy a rare, peaceful flight with my wife, nestled into what I thought would be the most serene window seat in first class. Sunlight spilled over her face, casting a golden glow that made her look like she belonged on the cover of a magazine. I was smiling, sipping my espresso, and for a brief moment the world felt perfect. Then she appeared. A woman, blonde, impeccably dressed, with an air of entitlement so thick I could almost taste it, stormed down the aisle, like she owned the plane, and in her hand, she wielded what I can only describe as a liquid weapon, a steaming cup of coffee. My heart skipped a beat as I realized her gaze had locked onto my wife's seat, the very window seat we were in. "You're in my spot," she shrieked, voice slicing through the cabin like a chainsaw. I tried to reason with her, to explain that this was assigned seating, but logic, as I soon learned, is useless against someone on a mission fueled by coffee and anger. Before I could even blink, she flung the cup. Time slowed. The coffee arced through the air like a caffeinated missile and landed with a wet splat, right across my wife's blouse. Gasps erupted from the surrounding passengers. My wife froze, stunned, her mouth opening and closing as if she were a fish out of water. The woman, satisfied, stood there smugly, waiting for applause for her heroic reclaiming of a window seat. I, on the other hand, felt a cold fury rising from my gut. Calmly, I stood, brushing the coffee off my wife's sleeve, and looked the culprit dead in the eye. And that's when I realized something crucial. She had no idea who she was messing with. Because as much as I love the thrill of a first-class flight, my real power isn't in the sky. It's in the airports themselves. I own 62 of them. Not just a little stake. Not just a token name on a plaque, full-blown, controlling, VIP access-only airports across the country. And as I saw her chest swell with triumph, I knew the moment of reckoning was about to come. By the time she realized what had happened, it would be too late. Oh, she would regret that coffee, all right? She didn't wait long to realize she had bitten off more than she could chew. The first crack in her smug armor appeared when I calmly sat back down, placed my hands on the tray table, and smiled in a way that was equal parts charming and terrifying. My wife, still dabbing at her blouse, shot me a worried glance. "Do something," she whispered. But I was already several moves ahead. The woman, let's call her Miss Coffee Thrower because I had learned her name from the boarding pass in her hand, leaned back in her seat, clearly expecting me to apologize, to grovel, to call in a flight attendant. But I didn't. Instead, I asked a simple question, almost innocently. "Do you know who owns the airports you just flew through?" Her brow furrowed. She laughed nervously, clearly assuming I was joking. "What are you talking about?" she said, tucking a strand of perfectly curled hair behind her ear. I leaned closer, my voice quiet but deadly calm. "I own 62 airports across the country," I said, enunciating each word slowly, savoring the moment. "Every runway, every lounge, every terminal. And you just threw coffee on the wife of the man who could cancel your flight at any time from any of those airports." The air shifted. You could feel it in the hum of the cabin, the smug arrogance that had filled her like perfume. Moments ago evaporated instantly. Her eyes widened, pupils shrinking in disbelief, like a deer caught in headlights. She opened her mouth to say something, anything, but no words came. She was trapped in the gravity of realization. I could see her calculating her escape, her mind racing through apologies, excuses, and frantic strategies to smooth things over. But here's the thing, in my world, apologies don't erase consequences. Every coffee stain, every insult, every moment of audacity has a price. And let's just say, I am very good at making people understand the true weight of crossing me. The flight attendants, sensing the tension, hovered awkwardly nearby. Other passengers whispered, their eyes darting between us. I could almost hear the collective thought, "This is going to get interesting." My wife, bless her, finally broke the silence with a soft laugh, shaking her head. "Honey," she said, "maybe don't scare her too much." But I wasn't scaring her. Not yet. I was teaching a lesson, one she and everyone watching would never forget. By the time we landed, Miss Coffee Thrower would know exactly who she had messed with, and she would regret it in ways she couldn't even imagine. I didn't act like a man who wanted immediate revenge. That would have been amateur hour. Instead, I smiled, folded my hands, and began playing a longer game, one that would teach her a lesson measured in inconvenience, embarrassment, and humiliation, rather than a single dramatic blow. Revenge, when done properly, should feel inevitable. First, I made a call, not a threat. Never that. Just a few quiet words to a friend who manages ground operations at one of my smaller but influential airports. I mentioned an unremarkable detail, an incoming charter that would need a gate change due to maintenance. My friend, loyal and efficient, acknowledged it with a curt, professional tone. That was all it took. Nothing flashy. Over the next 48 hours, I set small dominoes in motion. A misrouted baggage label here, a delayed lounge access approval there, a gentle nudge to a customer service rep to double-check her seat assignment for a return flight. Each action was surgical and subtle, engineered to fray the edges of her comfort. Without ever touching the theatrics of a direct confrontation, I watched from afar as her perfect schedule started to buckle. My favorite moment came when her business class upgrade failed to process because, mysteriously, her loyalty number had been flagged for review. She called customer service twice, then thrice, growing redder with every hold. Every time she thought she'd solved one problem, another tiny inconvenience presented itself. An overbooked shuttle at her connecting airport, a delayed spa appointment, a missing amenity bag in her hotel room. Nothing catastrophic, nothing illegal, just enough friction to turn entitled. Meanwhile, she kept posting smug photos, blissfully unaware that the world she curated online was crumbling, pixel by pixel. I could almost hear her thoughts. Why is everything going wrong? It's not like I did anything that bad. But she had done something very bad. She had humiliated someone in public, and I had the resources to make that humiliation quietly, elegantly reciprocated. My wife watched me orchestrate the symphony with a mixture of pride and horror. She liked that I protected her, but she did not relish being part of a smear campaign. I reassured her. This wasn't about cruelty. It was about accountability. People need to learn boundaries. On the third day, she finally snapped. It happened in a departure lounge, under fluorescent lights and indifferent buzz of announcements. She confronted an airline manager, her voice rising. In that moment, she became the spectacle she once thought she had created for us. Passengers stared. Her face flushed, and for the first time since the coffee incident, she looked vulnerable. The air in the terminal felt different that morning, taut and electric. I had orchestrated small torments with patient precision, but now it was time for the final move. Not cruelty, not a spectacle, a correction that would land where it mattered. In public, where she had launched her humiliation. I arrived early, dressed down to blend in. My wife squeezed my hand as we walked toward gate 28. She trusted the plan but kept her jaw tight. Miss Coffee Thrower was due to board a commercial flight, but I had arranged one last hitch, a mandated screening update requiring certain passengers to check in at a special counter. She complied, radiating impatience, until the representative asked for identification and cited a policy about randomized security audits connected to disruptive conduct. Her smile soured. She demanded answers, then fumbled for her phone, fingers shaking as she typed an angry post that would soon stream live. Her attempts to invoke influence met nothing but procedure. A live feed began and comments erupted. Travelers paused, heads tilting toward the commotion. Her tantrum, intended to rally support, instead exposed her behavior. Her entitlement, once a protective mask, became a spotlight revealing petty justifications. A fellow passenger, one who had witnessed the coffee incident, stepped forward and calmly recounted what happened. There was no vengeance in his voice, only a factual retelling. The crowd listened, expressions shifting from curiosity to sympathy for my wife. Truth has a weight that rumors cannot match, and in that moment the balance shifted. She tried to weaponize outrage, but the airport's protocols and the presence of witnesses neutralized her narrative. Her followers watched a different story unfold. Not a lone victim denied a view, but a woman who had deliberately humiliated another. The reaction online turned. Messages flooded in, less support, more incredulity. When the airline finally cleared her to proceed, she walked through the gate diminished, phone buzzing with messages she could no longer steer. The viral moment had inverted. The woman who had thrown coffee became the subject of ridicule and, more importantly, accountability. I had not ruined her life. I had created a space where consequences met character. My wife rested her head on my shoulder. "Was any of this necessary?" she asked quietly. I considered the question, felt the moral gravity of what we'd done, and replied, "Necessary for boundaries." It wasn't about satisfying a grudge. It was about ensuring that public humiliation carried repercussions. We moved on through security. Sunlight caught her hair just as it had on the flight, and I felt relief settle in me. The lesson had landed. The window seat was never just about a view. It was about respect. And sometimes boundaries are the only lesson. If you thought that coffee scene was insane, wait till you see what happens next. Smash that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment telling us what you would do if this happened to you. And don't forget to hit the like button, because you do not want to miss the chaos coming in our next video.